called them as, no, I didn't even call them, blocked them.
Ghosted ITV.
The face of the cosmetic industry has changed. There are no regulations. So there's two really interesting things there. It's like the motivation for why so many women, like myself, have felt pressured or desired to dabble in cosmetic treatments, and then is the actual industry itself. I think with Love Island, on that series, was the one that went really big, and I think no one really fully expected it to kind of do what it did. And we all hit like 1 million followers within like 24 hours of being out. That's quite scary.
It's so nice to have you here.
Oh, it's so nice to be here. I have to apologise for the hat. It's all fun and games having a fringe until it rains, and then you realise it might have been a massive mistake.
I cut a fringe about 1.5 years ago because it was this idea I couldn't get out of my head. I thought, I've got to just get it over and done with.
No.
It's so hard work.
It's so hard work. It keeps you awake at night until you do it. Like, it's all consuming. That's all I thought about was fringe for...
Yeah. And I didn't quite know how to work with it. Was I blow drying it with a round brush?
And then you do the straighteners and it's out here.
Yes.
And it's the whole thing. So the hat, and then I'm feeling like Joe from You.
I love the hat. And it's raining, so it's perfect.
Yeah,
it's all good. I mean, you haven't had to travel very far, which is genius too.
Local for once. It's amazing.
Love that.
Yeah.
And it's a big day for you today because your new TV show starts tonight. How are you feeling about that?
9 p.m. ITV2. Hope everyone's going to go home and watch. Excited. It's been a labour of love. It's been 2 years in the making. It's a hard time to make telly because we don't really know what anyone wants. So we're trying to make it entertaining and engaging, but also make sure that it's in those right parameters, because reality TV has changed a lot over the last 10 years, and I think we've hit the sweet spot. I enjoy watching it. I hate me is my least favourite part of the whole series, if I'm honest. Every time I watch it in the edit, I'm like, just get me off it, please.
Oh, there's nothing worse than watching yourself back.
Anyone that enjoys watching themselves,
very odd.
Know, can't relate.
No, same. I mean, you started out on TV in 2017. Looking back at your own career trajectory and looking back on that era, how does it make you feel? Because I'm sure it's whizzed by very quickly.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things where it feels like it was yesterday, but then also sometimes I try and draw memories from it and it feels like so long ago. Kind of just surreal, and I hate when people say that because that just sounds like a really cliche answer, but I think especially with Series 3 of Love Island, we all went in with such low expectation. We didn't expect anything really. I expected a few more Instagram followers, hopefully, some free clothes, a couple of PAs and my mates. Like, none of us expected to go on to do half the things that we've done. So it was, a great surprise.
It's amazing, and I love what you've done because, yes, you can go on a reality show and you can get 5 minutes of success or attention, but actually you've really now channeled it into, what do I like and what do I want to talk about? And I've loved watching your documentaries over the last few years. I really love The Price of Perfection. I found it just utterly fascinating. It's a subject matter that I'm deeply intrigued about. I'm sure most of you have seen it, but if anyone hasn't, obviously Olivia deep dives into looking at Botox and filler and treatments and all the different range of things that you can get done today. And also, I think, just what it is to be a woman in the modern age and the pressures that we all feel.
Yeah.
I've never had Botox, I've never had filler, I've never done a single thing because I'm sort of terrified about it for a couple of reasons. I think, I guess I don't know what I would look like, and that freaks me out a bit. But also, as you've said on many occasions, it's a slippery slope once you've started. Is it a slippery slope you're happy to be on?
Yes and no. Like you say, the face of the cosmetic industry has changed, and that's what I wanted the show to reflect, because there's a lot of shows out there showing the extremes and botched and people that have done all this crazy stuff, but it's the everyday person and generally more women who are having treatments done, sometimes treatments they can't afford, sometimes treatments done by practitioners that have no qualifications, no medical training. Like, we have a complete wild west out there when it comes to aesthetics in this country. There are no regulations. So there's two really interesting things there. It's like the motivation for why so many women, like myself, have felt pressured or desired to dabble in cosmetic treatments, treatments, and then is the actual industry itself. And if people are going to do things, how can they do them and stay safe? And it was fascinating and shocking at times, for sure.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like you were conflicted, because there was moments where you've got girls as young as 18 who are having regular lip filler and things done to their face, which you seemed unnerved about. Yet you also do feel like your confidence is boosted and it's something that you enjoy doing. It's a tricky one.
It's a tricky one. And there's like, you know, a woman in my 30s, and I probably first had Botox into my sort of mid-20s, because a lot of the girls that I was working with at the time, they all were getting Botox, so I thought, oh, I'll get it. And I even thought even that was young. But then to, like you say, meet teenage girls who are having lip fillers, Botox, that was shocking to me, because I just didn't know that was happening. And that, you know, it's a big argument for everyone to say, what is too young? You know, in my opinion, that is too young, but everyone's going to have their own opinion, because in so many ways your face and your body is still changing. So how can we start messing around with things or deciding we don't like something that's not even fully developed, you know?
I know. And is it possible to ever reach a moment where, if you've started having tweakments or Botox, whatever, that you go, and now I'm happy?
Yeah, I think it's hard to speak on that in a general term. Like, I think it depends what you're trying to get out of it. I think if anyone's going in for cosmetic treatments looking for happiness, you're on a road to nowhere. So if doing little bits and bobs or doing things with your skin, whatever helps your confidence, and you feel like you're in control of that journey, then it's great. But I think if you are going through a breakup or you're suffering with depression, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to go get my boobs done and everything's going to be great, it's not going to work. And then you're just going to look for the next thing to give you that dopamine high, and the next thing, and that's when I think people get unstuck.
And I guess it's the slippery slope is due to the fact that once you've started to go, oh, this could be different, that could be different, we can all, you know, I could pick 10 flaws, things I don't like about my face now. You know, I'm in my 40s now, these lines are just getting deeper and deeper, and the lines in my forehead and all this sort of stuff I can see. And I think if I started, it would be never ending. There would always be something else that I could go to. Does that worry you? You know, you're in your 30s, but sort of looking to the future and ageing.
Yeah, 100%. And I think because I'm, you know, a strong-minded person and I would describe myself as someone who's happy in myself. So even though I do indulge in, you know, treatments, things like that, it doesn't consume a lot of headspace for me. Like, it's kind of something that every few months I go, oh, I'm going to, it's just kind of routine, but I don't spend loads of time looking at myself and actually, you know, what it's like when you're in this industry. I try to avoid looking at myself as much as possible. So I think that my relationship with it, I'm quite happy with. But like you say, it's very hard to know where you sit on it. And before you know, you are in that obsessive stage. Because like you say, once you've done one thing and that's made you feel good, you can look at the next thing. And then where does it end, you know? And that when it comes down, you have a little word with yourself and you go, okay, I'm a human being. This is how people are meant to, you know, human faces are meant to move and they're meant to have, you know, lines and pores and everything. And unfortunately, we don't see many real faces, you know, anywhere, especially not online. So you have to, online and people around you maybe aren't going to sort of educate you on that, but you have to remind yourself.
Oh my God, without a doubt. I think, you know, it all started, I guess, looking at social media, also bringing filters into the equation, that you can, and people tweaking their face just digitally. So then when they do look in the mirror, they're like, oh God, I don't look like the person that I want to sort of express to the world. That freaks me out as well.
Well, I had a really interesting conversation with some of my friends and some girls we met during the doc. And actually, I think being in this industry, weirdly, has made it easier for me to know what's real, because I see these influencers and I see these people, these celebrities, and then I see them in real life, and yet they look amazing. No one looks like their Instagram pictures. Whereas I was talking to my friend and she was like, yeah, but I'd never see so-and-so in real life. So how would I know that no one actually, they're amazing and they're perfect and beautiful, but they don't look like that. And I guess if you never have contact with the people you follow on Instagram in the flesh, you never get that kind of reality check.
No, I know.
It's like when people say when you go on the beach, how many people look like, we all think, oh, on the beach, I don't want to go on the beach in my bikini because this is, how many supermodels you see on the beach? Not many.
And also, if anyone takes a picture of a bikini, they've usually done something weird with their bodies where they've gone like, one hip out, suck the tummy in, and like they've made this sort of shape.
100%.
And like I'm not a hot summer girl. That is not my thing. Like I'm good in the autumn. I'm good in the winter. Like I'll wear a boot. I've got a coat on.
Your hibernation season.
Yeah, I'm like I look so shit on the beach. Like I never wear my hair back because this is one of my things. If I could do a tweakment, I'd bring my hairline down an inch. I've got a big
the forehead,
so I can't wear my hair back. So I look like an egg, and I'm sort of sweaty, and it's not good. But I understand that pressure. I think for women especially, I know there's some men in the audience here, and I'm sure there'll be men that think, well, I don't like some things about myself. But the societal pressure and the pressure that comes from the media and social media for women to pin so much self-worth to what they look like, it
100%.
seems to only be ramping up.
It does. And then I think it's weird because some people would argue and say, well, look at social media. There's a whole movement now that's about realness and body positivity. And so there's some influencers who are posting things that are, very kind of raw and exposing, like, ingrown hairs, or they're showing stretch marks or whatever. And you think then that that's having a balance. But I think on the other side, like you say, that it's almost pushing the extremes in both directions, what is that?
Little hair?
Little friend there.
Oh, a little bug.
But I think your self-worth journey is something that you have to go on your own, because if we think about it with women since the beginning of time, the beauty standards have always been there.
Yeah.
They've just evolved. So, and I don't think they're ever going to go on anywhere, unfortunately, but you have to have that self-worth conversation with yourself. And for me, pre-Love Island, around the beginning of Love Island times, my self-worth was very much correlated to how I look. And that was because that's how I made my money. And I was doing pageants, and I was doing loads of things that no one cared what I had to say. And, they made that really clear, because also I can't shut up. So it was like really hard for them to be like, shh. Just wear the bikini and please just button it. But now I've got into a situation in my life where people actually care what I have to say. So my journey's kind of changed a little bit. And although I still like to look, whatever I feel is my version of good and glamorous, it actually doesn't equate to my self-worth as much as it did.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us are trying to find that balance, aren't
it's hard.
Of going, where am I putting my self-worth? And I mean, it's tricky to know what's healthy, because I could say I put too much of my self-worth in my working life, and it's not much different. It's like, actually, we just need to find it with sort of liking ourselves generally, which is a hard one. But I find as I'm getting older, I've got this sense of rebellion that kicks in, especially when it comes to women, because I did a little experiment the other day where I sort of put something on social media about this. I was Googling lots of different front covers of magazines and looking at how women are represented, whether they're models or famous people, whatever. And it was always for the women, no matter what their age, looking at some sort of celebrities we know who are in their 50s, 60s. It seemed to be like, how young can we make them look? And like, if there's any lines or wrinkles, airbrush them out, just make them look all young and glamorous. And then you look at, say, a men's magazine, GQ or whatever it is, and you take someone of a similar age, someone like Idris Elba or someone that we can think of that's very famous and ageing, and they don't try and make them look younger. If anything, all the men on the front covers do this face.
The rugged, the wrinkles.
And they want the lines on the forehead, like the more lines, the better. And then we're all trained to go, oh my God, he's actually getting fitter as he gets older.
Yeah.
But then for women, we go, oh, witch. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, how does that happen? That's not actually what we think. We've just been told that, oh, okay, so men get hotter, and those lines on the forehead mean like, oh, they're intelligent too. But then for women, it's like, oh, she's aging, bloody hell. Like, that is, to me, psychologically, wild.
And then you have that rhetoric, and you see it. The few women broadcasters and people who actually, you know, age naturally and they don't do Botox, whatever. Everyone's like, oh, look at her. She look, you know, how terribly she's aging, and she looks like this and looks like that. And then you flip to the person who's done a facelift. Oh, mutton. You literally can't win because you do the thing, you look like you're desperate and you've got a waxy face or whatever. If you don't do it, they're like, oh my God, please get some Botox. So it's like, what are you meant to do?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Just do what makes you happy, ultimately.
I think that is the way forward.
And it's really hard to shut out the outside noise because it's so loud. But it's the same thing with weight. It's the same thing, you know, you're either too heavy or you're too thin. And that's what, you know, you can see both sides of that online. You know, you're either go and eat a burger, this, that and the other, and then someone who's curvier, fuller figure is getting all the opposite comments. So where's the middle? There isn't one, because ultimately people who want to criticise and they want to control and guilt women, it's a really easy way to do it through the way that we look and the way, and they feign concern for, well, God, I'm really concerned about her. She's had too much surgery, so she's too thin, or she's put on weight. It's not concern, it's just a really clever tactic to try and control us.
I absolutely agree, and I think that's why I love that documentary specifically, because I came away from it going, do you know what? Not that I had any judgment before, but I understand this even more, that there are women out there doing these treatments for all manner of reasons. And sometimes it is confidence, sometimes it's pressure, but actually the only way we can sort of beat that narrative that's being shoved down our throats is, like you said, to do what makes us feel good. Yeah. It's the only way to beat it.
100%.
I really loved it. The other documentary I loved was the trolling documentary, because it's a huge issue. The stat that came out that you talked about in the doc is that 1/3 of young Brits have been trolled, which I found sort of not shocking but awful. Like, oh God, that is happening. You know, it is happening everywhere. Yeah. And it's not just to people that are in the public eye. It's in schools. Bullying is now sort of transferred to this sinister underground online bullying and trolling. And it's a serious problem that doesn't sadly seem to be getting much better.
No. And I think that was my biggest shock in making the doc, was that it does transfer now to people who aren't on social media for a career, or they're not from telly, like you say. Playground bullying now just comes online. So if it's under control in schools to an extent, which I know in a lot of cases it isn't, but if it is, then what happens is they go home and they are nasty to each other online. And some of the stuff that I saw was so disturbing. And it's just, there is no lid on it at the moment, unfortunately. And it's just way too easy for people to make a fake account, send a load of really disturbing, hateful stuff, and then just disappear. Yeah. And it's something that the social media companies have to get hold of, because there surely is a way to deter people from doing this.
I know, how. Like, there is so little governance that it terrifies me. My son turns 12 in the new year, and I've already said to him, you're not getting a phone until you're 14. Yeah. I'm going to try and keep him off social media as long as possible.
But how many of his friends have phones?
So many. I'd say half of his mates already have a phone.
It's scary, isn't it?
It's really... And also, it's sort of unavoidable, because then he'll go to someone's house and they're looking on their phone or whatever. So I feel, as a parent, utterly freaked out. Yeah. And also, I know from being in the public eye that I still, after all of these years, do not cope well when someone is, for the sake of it, giving me abuse or saying something awful. So how is a kid supposed to? We're not... I think that's the other part of it. We need to work out how we help kids navigate this.
100%.
Because it's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. And I think it's like a case, like you said, of education for kids, and then also for parents to know like the risks and how to cope with it. Because I do think there's something so terrible about thinking of a child reading something, and also when it's in writing, you know, they can keep going back to it, and if you see something enough, you start to believe it. And that was the case with some of the people I met, that, you know, that they would just in secret from their parents would go back and look at these messages, and if it didn't affect them the first time they read it, 3 or 4 times they're looking at it, you start to think, oh, is that true? Am I all those things? Should I be here? Like, it's terrifying. And, you know, hurt people. The people that are doing the trolling have really complex issues, but unfortunately we still have to protect people from them. You know, there's two massive issues going on here, but I think if it wasn't so kind of consequence free, then it might slow down a little bit. There's a lot of the things that people say online, they wouldn't shout at someone in the street, because if a policeman or someone overheard, you'd be arrested, and that would be you. But it's a very safe space just to spew.
It's terrifying. I mean, you actually met up with a guy that had been imprisoned for sending some horrendously graphic and misogynistic comments online. And part of me was like, oh, right, so you can go to prison for this. That's a good thing, that there is a consequence. But actually, when you met him, he was this very unassuming, placid, very nervous character who seemed extremely remorseful. And that's not what my mind would jump to when I think of a troll. I think of someone who's a bit of a bully. I actually, sadly, I think probably from my years being in the public eye, often think of them as being someone who knows better than me, which is worrying. Like I can sometimes go, oh God, maybe what they're saying about me is right, which is a whole other psychological thing I have to work through. But to see this guy who was sort of quite nervous and felt very sorry for his actions was really jarring. Did that change your mind as to how you think about trolls?
It did a little bit, I have to say. And that day was hard because I'd done all the research of who I was going to meet, read all the things that he'd written, and it was to an MP, and it was just horrendous stuff. And I went in there with this mindset. I was really riled up about it, and I was like, I'm going to give him a really hard time. And then, like you say, when he came and met me, straight away, I just felt sorry for him. I instantly was like, this person is, he's remorseful because he obviously was caught and he had to do his time and whatever. But I just saw a very sad person, and it was a very long chat. We talked for over an hour, but obviously, you can't fit that all into one show. And what he described to me was that time in his life, and he was miserable at work, and he had no friends, and the story of what I think it is for so many people that troll. And again, it's not excusable, and the devastating effect it had on the person that he trolled, it's not an excuse, but you can't help but have a human empathy for someone when they're standing in front of you and you think, I kind of get it, because all humans want to feel is important. That's like our thing that makes us feel alive, right? And that's like one of the basic human needs, is to feel important. And I think so many people, especially post-pandemic, are lonely. They're looking for validation. They're looking for human connection, and that was his way of satisfying that. And he said the reason he carried on doing is that he wrote that one really awful tweet, and then all these other trolls came out of the woodwork and they were like, you're great, this is hilarious, retweeted it, and he felt really good. And he was getting a kick out of it. And again, I'm not validating, but it just gives you a little peek behind the curtain of why some people do this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it massively reframed a lot of it for me, and has made me think differently about it. If luckily I don't get trolled too much these days, but back when I was on the radio, where you're in this public forum and you're on the BBC's turf, it's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
It's definitely made me think differently about things. One thing that I was shocked about was this website called Tattle Life, where it's like a home for trolls.
Yeah.
They're all on there, letting rip, going for it. That to me was like, oh my God, that exists.
I know.
I felt quite naive. Like, I can't believe that sort of place exists, that people are enjoying getting together and causing that level of negativity.
I'm sure some of you have heard of it, because I didn't realise how many people knew about this website, and I was ignorant to it as well. And it's just literally forums where they start threads under different topics, and they just write awful things. And you see on the app, we tried to track down, it's like an IP address in Arizona. It's like we went down a goose chase. Like, you literally can't pinpoint whoever is, running this thing, owns this thing. It's like trying to catch a ghost. But it's bizarre. And also, again, I just think you could just shut it down and just kind of nip it in the source, but there's obviously someone's monetizing somewhere from that, and they don't want it to go anywhere. But it's really horrible, and
it's dark.
I read my own thread. My way of coping with things often is laughing. Like, sometimes
it's the only way.
I just read stuff and I'm like, okay, that's actually quite funny. But I understand for a lot of people that is not the case, and I've met people who it's like ruined their life because they can't, disconnect from it, and they check it every day, and the things people write are really awful. And then you read things about you that they are really personal, and they think only someone who knows me must have written that.
So then you stop trusting people.
It's horrible, horrible.
Such an awful place. I mean, when you were on Love Island, obviously you went from having a relatively normal existence and being able to go about your business to quite literally overnight. I'm not sure what the ratings were for that series, but I'm sure they were absolutely through the roof high. Millions of people watching, millions of people looking on social media to then follow your experience after Love Island. And I'm sure, because of the nature of the show, you're getting positive and negative comments. How did you cope with that?
I mean, I don't know if you guys remember my series. I was quite a divisive character, so I definitely got, a mixed reaction. I think with Love Island, in my experience, and I'm not speaking for everyone that does this show, because I went in at the beginning and I went out at the end, it's all happening live, right? So actually, it was worse for my family and friends, because they're reading it all as it's happening. I'm actually oblivious to what's going on. And then this kind of strange thing happens when you come out of the villa. You just start searching your name and you start reading the debates, and it's very disarming, because you've just been living this life in this bubble in this villa, and then you realise that people have been feeling really passionate about what they've been watching. So you're kind of getting your head around that. But then as you come out, they kind of humanise you a little bit more, because you're on your stories and you can kind of show a little bit more of yourself outside of the show. So it turns a bit of a corner, but it's definitely a learning curve. Look, on that series was the one that went really big, and I think no one really fully expected it to kind of do what it did, and we all hit 1 million followers within 24 hours of being out. That's quite scary, because how do I navigate this? I didn't earn it. I don't know what to do with it. And you just looking at it what do I do? And then you learn on the job, as it were. Always been quite thick-skinned. My mum, my sister, my family, the way we are is, it's kind of a tough love family, and I come from that modelling background and doing pageants and stuff, so never shied away from people's opinions. I've always been quite resilient to it, and I think that helped me, put me in good stead. But for some people, that's not the case at all, and I know for some people it's incredibly difficult. And it's one of those, it's some days I was really disconnected from it, and someone would write something really specifically mean, and I just feel kind of comedically good. You're wasting a bit of a talent here. You shouldn't be on the Daily Mail. You should be doing some stand-up somewhere. It's actually quite decent. And then other days you're having a rubbish day, and someone's like, "Oh, you look like, a praying mantis." You're like, "Oh my God, I like a praying mantis." So it just depends what day you're having, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, I'm probably the other end of the spectrum. I am much more sensitive. I don't think I've got a thick skin at all.
But you must have on some level, or you wouldn't have been able to do what you've done.
I mean, I've had periods of my career where I've gone, I'm out, I'm done. I'm absolutely so close to I'm out, I'm done. And
because of dealing with the...
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, certainly one period of my life where, I was quite lucky because I started so long ago. I started telly in 1996, so there was no...
Didn't have that.
Was the internet going in 96? Just about. I don't know. I didn't know what people thought of me. I could do a TV show and I could go home and then I'd go to the park and hang with my mates and I wouldn't think about it ever again. So I think I found that introduction. So I remember when Twitter came about and I was on the radio, Reggie and I were doing a show and he was like, "Oh, have you seen this thing called Twitter?" And I was like, "Oh, this is exciting." And it all felt quite cool at first and a way to connect with people. And I think incrementally we realised, there's another side to this. And people, and actually when we were on the radio, we used to have this, I don't know if they still have this, a screen up, and it would just have all the text messages coming in relentlessly, which was really full on back then because we weren't using social media, so it was a direct way of communicating right into the studio. I mean, again, with no filter. And I became a little bit desensitised to that because it was every day. Some lovely things and lovely funny messages, but obviously the odd thing that was just, and people sort of saying, "You're not good." And I think it's really tricky to keep your self-worth, but also your self-compassion in place when that is an everyday thing. Because you do think, well, there must be some truth in this. And I actually don't think there is. I think you know, deep down, we all know what our capabilities are and what our skill set is. But I certainly, back in the day, really took everything to heart. And I think it was my self-worth and my self-compassion that dwindled so quickly. And I would then turn on myself and think, well, I'm not good, or I'm not, you know, worthwhile being on this radio station, or whatever it might be. Do you think it impacts your self-love? Do you like yourself?
Yes, most days. I mean, like you say, self-love and self-liking myself for me has definitely been a journey. I think during my teen years, my early 20s, I had a difficult time at school in the sense that I had friends and I had fun, but that was about all I knew. And I had the undiagnosed ADHD, so I had, you know, a lot of guilt. I was wondering why some people found things easier than me, and I think I've gone through a really big journey of liking myself and loving myself. And I think that, like you say, this industry is a funny one because you find yourself in what is like a dream job, and you're like, okay, I'm actually really good at this, and then someone's like, no, you're not. Like, even though it's just some random guy from, you know, wherever, or a woman, it's a weird thing because there's not many other jobs. Unless you're like a sports person or you're on the telly or anything public, you don't just like run down to the local kind of accountants and bang on the window and go, you're not good at your job, by the way. Yeah. Or like, you know, so it's really strange to have someone to be at work and people telling you you're crap at your job while they're doing it, because you're like, just let me finish my shift.
Exactly.
But then there's loads of, you know, I'm never going to sit here and, you know, like say I'm a victim or anything, because it's also a very privileged, lovely, exceptionally fun job to do. So I think with any job in life, period, there's like the good and the bad. And I think, unfortunately, with this day and age, with doing any public facing job, whether it's a sports person or an artist or whatever, the negative side is the constant standing trial in the court of human opinion, which it can be tough.
Absolutely. I mean, we had Gary Neville sat in this very chair yesterday. We did a podcast with Gary and his wife Emma, and he was saying, oh, this crowd is so lovely in comparison to the football crowd, who are really unforgiving and will turn on someone in a heartbeat. And I think you do have to find coping mechanisms to deal with that. What do you think, what things, tools, coping mechanisms have helped you like yourself or find that level of self-compassion?
But actually, as you say that, so my husband, who's in the corner, Bradley.
Oh, hi, Bradley.
Hi, Bradley. Having him as a bit of a benchmark for me in terms of trolling after Love Island, when we got back together, was quite good, because football fans and the things that they can write to players, it's like we all know, we've all seen it, you know, in the newspapers, are so awful that sometimes I would see messages that they get, and I think, God, okay, I've got it quite easy. And he's very, you know, strong-minded, and he's very kind of focused on the job. And I think he's been very good at helping keep me like in check and remind me that someone on the internet messaging me doesn't define me or doesn't mean that I'm bad or good or anything in between. I think as long as you are being true to yourself, like cliche, and you're being, you know, who your friends and family know you to be, then you can be proud of yourself. But for me, I always say to all Love Islanders coming off, just try and spend, I know it's such an easy thing to say, try and spend as little time in your phone as possible. Like, do what you need to do what you want to do, but just don't go looking for stuff. Like, I've never had Google alerts on my phone. I wouldn't advise anyone to do that. Don't go searching your names in platforms, because I think it's just a road to nowhere. So that's one thing I never look for things. And quite often if I see things, it'll be because someone goes, oh my God, did you see this? And I'll go, no, but now you've said, I'll have a look.
I hate that text message. Or someone sends you a text going, I'm so sorry. And you're like, no, what? God, I haven't read the thing. What's the story? Like, awful. The worst text message possible.
So, yeah, don't go looking for it. And just, you know, live outside your phone. You know, like, my life isn't what I share in there and on there is what I choose to share. And I have to remember that I am a person and I have a life that exists outside of that platform. I just have to kind of keep that disconnect. And it's almost like the ship and the water metaphor. Don't let the water on, because once you let a little bit on, before you know it, it's flooded. So you have to kind of be really strong at keeping the water off. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think all of us can do that, even off of social media. Like, we can all go looking for ways to not like ourselves. Like, it's so easy if we're like comparing ourselves to someone else, or we're remembering something that we did 10 years ago that was utterly dreadful or whatever. We can easily sit there and go through a Rolodex in our mind of things to turn against ourselves. We've got to not do that.
Yeah, and I think a big thing for me coming out of the early part of my 20s, and I was so reactive and I was so sort of wound up all the time. I took everything personally, and I think one thing as you get older, and there's like the best piece of advice to give to anyone, is that it's never actually that personal. Like that person that is rude to you or dismissive, or that person at work who's just being a bit of an arsehole. I don't know if I had to swear.
Oh no, we've done loads of swearing today. Swearing's fine.
It's actually never about you. And as soon as you kind of really live by that and you get it into your head, life becomes way easier. And what I used to do was take on everyone's stuff, like everyone's moods, everyone's shortness over message. I used to think it's a direct reflection of me. I'm annoying. I'm probably a bit annoying, but actually you realise
you're not annoying.
We've all got our own stuff going on, and I think as soon as you just remember that, it makes life a lot lighter.
Yeah. Are you good at forgiving yourself? Because I think that's another key element to self-compassion, is being able to recognise that we've all made mistakes. Obviously, we've all done things we regret, but not just noticing it, to go, and that's okay. Like, I am a human. Can you forgive yourself?
That forgiving myself is one thing that I'm working on. I'd say that liking yourself, loving yourself, forgiving yourself all comes under a bit of an umbrella. And I think where I've come on quite a journey with liking myself, I think I give myself a hard time, and especially when it comes to work. And I'm a perfectionist, and I want things to be amazing, and I want everyone to everything to be perfect, and I want everything to rate really highly, and I kind of put a lot of pressure on myself, and and that's something I'm trying to work on a little bit. But then I think that there's a good and a bad bit to that, because if you care about things and you want them to be great, then they sometimes are. You need to care about things, but not to the point where to your own detriment. And that's a struggle, I think, that a lot of people can relate to in your sort of personal life, but also more a work life thing. It's like we want to everything to be perfect, and sometimes you just have to do your best, and that's what you've done.
I agree, because I love doing stuff like this, and I am a really ambitious person. I always have been, and I think certainly women need space to be able to say that. Like, I'm ambitious. I've got goals. I've got things I want to do, and I care deeply, and I want things to go well. But also leaving enough room that if things don't go well, or something doesn't rate as well, or a book doesn't sell as well, or whatever it is, that you are somehow able to continue. Because I think it's such a block for all of us when something doesn't turn out as we wanted, that we go, I quit. It didn't work. I'm out. I'm mortified, and I want to hide, and I don't want to do this ever again. How do you climb out of that hole?
Like you say, it's difficult, and it's about kind of being nice to yourself and saying, well, just because this thing wasn't perfect and it didn't tick every box that I built it up to in my mind, does it mean that I'm terrible at it? Does it mean I'm never going to be asked again? It doesn't mean I'm never going to work again. And we catastrophise, don't we? And I'm really quite bad at catastrophizing. And I think loads of people are. We write the story, we write the ending before it's even happened. And I think that's a way of managing fear and managing the unknown. You go, I'm going to write this story in my head and I can predict how it's going to go, and actually stop going to letter Z when you're only at A. You did this thing, didn't go amazing. You've written the whole story that hasn't even happened yet. No one might even care that it didn't do that well. Maybe they thought it did do well, but you just didn't. And I think that can happen with friendships, with relationships, across the board, family. Yeah, and I think you just have to not write the rest of the story. I had to stop myself in that moment of, okay, a bit disappointed, but let's just stop there and let's see what happens. Take a breath.
Yeah.
Let's
not write the novel. Yeah. I could spiral for a good day.
I write some great stories in my head.
Oh, same.
I say things to my husband in the morning and go, how did you get there? He's like, it hasn't even happened yet. And I'm like, no, just thinking of the worst case scenario, aren't I? And he's like, yeah, stop.
My husband, I'm glad that we've both got sort of similar chilled husbands who can go, halt.
Yes.
That is mad. Stop.
Well, he's opening his eyes in the morning. I'm going, I just thought the dog hasn't had a haircut in like 6 weeks. He's like, right, I'm going to brush my teeth and we'll come back to the dog's haircut. But you do need that balance. So that's one thing. As I got older, I'm like, why didn't any of my other relationships work? I'm like, because you can't have two crazies.
No.
You have to have one calm.
Oh, no,
you
same.
have to have calm. Someone has to mellow it out.
No, that's the same. Me and my husband, he
Yeah.
is the same calm person in
Yeah.
the relationship, and I love that. I mean, you've always come across, whether it's in the documentaries or on Love Island or talking to you now, as someone that has perhaps a natural confidence, or is that been cultivated? I think one of the things that I find when I'm doing a podcast or I'm doing a talk or I'm walking around the festival is that people who have great ideas, want to try something new, are really blocked by feeling like that confidence isn't there. What is there, like a top tip, or is there advice that you would give for people to try and find that inner confidence?
So I was the shyest kid ever, and I know that you wouldn't even believe it. If my mum was here, she'd tell you that I was that first day of school every single year. They'd be like, right, get ready for that. The waterworks, hanging onto the leg. Like, my mum just didn't understand. My brother and sister were so confident. My mum's a really confident person. Just came out the womb like that, super anxious child. And that followed me through my teen years, my early school career. And then it followed me into my first relationships. And what I did was I hung everything on the first boyfriend I had. And I used to hang on to people and things to make me feel safe. And this pattern went on for years. And I'd say it went on until my sort of early 20s. And I had this list of things I was afraid of. And that list just grew all the time. I was scared of lifts. I was scared of flying. But every day I'd add a new thing. And what I was actually doing, and I didn't realise this, was making my world as small as I physically could, because then I was like, it's safe, and I don't have to go outside my comfort zone, and I don't have to feel like I don't know what to expect where I'm going. And it's a really hard one to sort of tell to people, because it happened to me kind of not overnight. It's not overnight, but I had a couple of periods a week where something came over me. I was like, what are you actually doing, like, with your life? That you've made your world so small because you don't like being uncomfortable, and you don't like putting yourself out there. And I just made this really conscious effort where it's like, I'm going to start doing something almost every week that makes me feel really uncomfortable, or something that scares me a little bit. I'm going to get in the lift. I'm going to not cut the chicken in half and like examine it under my phone light that it's pink, and I'm going to get salmonella. I started just like all the things, like just silly little things. And to be honest, confidence linked into that, because it was like my world, I need to knock the walls down. And I used to, turn down any modelling jobs where I'd be going to a country where I didn't speak the language. And I was like, right, no, I'm taking that job in Poland where I know I'm the only English-speaking girl and I don't really know what it is. And it probably putting my personal safety, not recommending, sometimes a little bit of risk, because I was like, I need to get myself uncomfortable. And actually, once you start forcing yourself to do little things, that confidence grows, because you get that little kick out of it, you get that little dopamine rush, and it becomes kind of addictive. And that's all I would say. I think if you're feeling scared, unconfident, kind of trapped in like a very reality of your own making, just start breaking things down. Don't know, take a dance class, go on a trip on your own, do something that scares you, and then you get a little buzz out of it, and then you just keep building on it. And that would be it. Love Island. Then literally my mum and sister had to basically drag me to the airport because I was going to get cold feet again. They're like, my best friend since primary school, she's like, this is what you always do. You get scared, because I got scared on series 2 and I ran away. I was so surprised.
Oh, you were meant to do series 2?
Meant to do series 2, ready to go 2 weeks before, called them. I didn't even call them, blocked them.
Wow.
Blocked
Ghosted ITV.
them on everything. Then when they contacted in series 2, they're like, hello. I was like, hello. But again, I watched it at home, series 2, and I was like, that looks amazing. Why didn't I do it? That could have been so cool. But again, I let the cold feet get the better of me. And like, ultimately, it was that one thing that changed my life. It might not have been, But if I hadn't done it, I never would have known. I'm not saying like run out and apply for reality TV shows. There's other avenues to explore, but you know, just do that thing that feels a bit scary and it makes you feel good.
It's so cool to hear it because I think we all assume there are confident people and unconfident people.
No.
And actually I think some people might naturally have a bit more confidence, but I certainly believe, and throughout my whole career, that it's practice. You
100%.
get better at putting yourself out there, at trying something new, and it's really lovely to know that it can be a habit rather than, well, I'm just not a confident person. It's something that we can cultivate and get better at.
I literally believe it because I'm living proof that you don't have to be the confident, like, showbiz kid to be a confident person. Like me and my sister, she was the one, she's younger than me, like at playgroup, she'd literally push me to the floor to do show and tell. And I was like, that's fine, because I'd literally feel like my skin's on fire and people look at me. And now I do this for a job. So, and it makes me really happy, but I only got to experience how happy it makes me when I force myself to get uncomfortable for a little bit.
It's a really good thing to hear, and I think it's a good reminder for all of us that, you know, we have much more autonomy over that than we believe. We can try new things, we can put ourselves in situations that feel a bit scary and bring new opportunities in. It's a really, really cool thing to hear. I've loved talking to you. I love the subjects that we've covered.
Same.
And I want to say all the love and luck for your new TV show. And thank you so much for coming to the Happy Place Festival.
Ray.
Give it up for Olivia Atwood.
Thanks, Ray. That was so
Thank
good.
you so much.
Thanks,
Olivia.
Thank you.